Welcome friends, it is I, LostScarf, and it's time for the newest beginner god guide, and it is Mercury, the messenger of the gods. He's pretty fast, he's pretty hard-hitting, and he's a hyper carry, so he wrecks face pretty dang well. So we're going to go over him, a lot of basic information here, going over Conquest and Arena with him, just basic ideas on how to play him, builds for him, do's and don'ts with him, a lot of basic information with him. Not too much advanced or expert stuff, you'll figure that out on your own. It's really trying to give you a good base here, so you can just play well, and eventually you'll get better as you go. So let's go ahead and get going. So who is Mercury? Mercury is the messenger of the gods, so he's really fast and has an unhealthy addiction to onion rings and chili dogs. He's a hyper carry capable of moving across the map very quickly and 2 to 3 hitting many gods during the late game. If you want to get from here to there and everywhere while killing people, Mercury is your speed demon. Mercury's abilities. First up is his passive, Fastest God Alive. 25% of Mercury's movement speed from abilities and items becomes bonus physical power. Also, for every 1 foot traveled before Mercury's next basic attack deals 0.1% extra damage, up to 50%. So 500 feet traveled equals 50% bonus damage. His first ability is called Mage Look. This is a ranged AoE attack that counts as a basic attack and can only be used in line of sight. You can't go through walls with it. As you level up, the AoE gets bigger and you deal more damage. It also procs basic attack passives like crit and other things like that. His second ability is Maximum Velocity. Now the passive of this is it gives you a percentage of movement speed. So that's why it says that in the passive abilities and items. And when you use it actively, it boosts up your attack speed as well. His third ability is called Special Delivery. This is a dash forward that pierces minions. If he hits an enemy god, he grabs them and spins around them for a moment and then throws them in a direction of your choosing. During this time in the air, you can get a free punch at them, which does a lot of damage. Finally is his ultimate Sonic Boom. This is a dash that grows in range as it is being aimed. All enemies in the path of the dash are disoriented for 1.5 seconds, so you can use it as escape or as a dive. There's a lot of things you can do with this. It's a very effective way of just doing so many things in the game, and you'll learn how to do it as you go. Mercury in Conquest. Now for beginners, you should play him as a jungler, and as advanced you can play him in solo, mid, ADC. I'd say just solo. The other ones are a lot trickier to do with Mercury. They're doable, but you have to be really good at it. But you can pull off solo fairly well. But jungler is definitely the way to go when you first play with him. Now on the screen you're seeing a build going on here. There's a lot of ways to build Mercury. There's a lot of ways to be very effective with him, but I feel like this will serve you pretty well as a beginner. Now you start out with Bumba's Mask, level 1 boot, Hog 1, and some potions. You don't get Death Toll because I feel Bumba's Mask with its mana and the sustain is going to serve you better as a beginner. You can experiment with Death Toll later in the future. Now after you do the solo lane phase stuff, trying to get some levels there, and you're farming again, you want to get Hog 2 as soon as you can so you can clear your camps a little bit faster, by 30 seconds, which is pretty good. And you want to rush to Golden Bow level 2. After that, it's your choice whether you want to go level 3 Golden Bow, finish your boost, or get going to Executioner. What's important though is getting to Bow 2. You need that passive to help you clear jungle camps quickly. Without that, you kind of have a hard time clearing camps. Eventually you get Executioner to deal with anyone who's got any armor, just to attack faster as well. Bloodforge is really good for lifesteal and power. You just hit really hard, and 2 crit items are very helpful there. This is a really good beginner build. There's better ways to optimize Mercury, but right now I feel like this will serve you very well as a beginner. You want to eventually of course get Hog to Fist so you can stun better, and Beads for survivability, though you have other options you can take as well, which can serve you pretty good. Some people really like Hasteless on Mercury, so you can also get Sprint for his second active if you don't want to get Beads instead, if you don't want to get Hasteless. But there's a lot of things you can do. You can also of course get Devourer's Gauntlets, Aussie for attack speed and lifesteal, you get Witchblade to slow down your opponents while you're attacking them faster, you can hit them with the Frostbound Hammer to slow them down, Titan's Bane. Of course you can be defensive with maybe Magi's Blessing, which is actually really good for Mercury. That's the only defensive item you can really get with him that'll work out is Magi's Blessing, because it saves you from having to use beads, kind of. Malice if you want crits in a different way, Yotan's Wrath if you want cooldown and pen. Those are all good options, and like I said for actives, Sprint, Beads, Hog, and then maybe Aegis if you want that as a defensive item instead. Now when it comes to abilities, I say max your 1 first, then your 2, then your 3, and then finally your ultimate whenever possible. The 1 because that'll help you clear out pretty well, and you also hit really hard with Major Look. Also when it's bigger, you can land your proc easier, so that's going to be really good. Of course your second ability, Maximum Velocity, being able to hit faster sooner, is pretty good as well. And then of course your dash is more for the pull to push than to actually use it for damage, so it's just fine as it is until you level it later on. And a Sonic Boom of course has good utility and power to it. You want to level that whenever possible, but really Major Look first, Maximum Velocity second will serve you very well. Now in the laning phase, which is the first half of the match, you're a jungler of course, so you're going to farm a lot and you're going to be attacking lanes to kill enemy gods or to apply pressure. But you want to make sure you farm very well and efficiently, and you'll learn how to do that as you play. The reason why you want to be as efficient as possible is because you're a hyper carry. The longer the match goes, the stronger you get. So the more efficient you are at farming and ganking, the sooner you get to the late game. Because at late game, Mercury can 2 to 3 hit most gods pretty well, especially mages. Mages die to him almost instantly. So you want to get to that late game as quickly as you can. But in the laning phase, of course, you're not going to be there yet, but you're just building towards it. Something to take advantage, of course, is your passive. As you're running around, you're building up that passive, so when you're hitting people, you're going to hit them really hard with the initial hit. You want to make sure you're able to finish them right after it. So you might want to save your ultimate to chase after, or your dash to chase after. You want to be able to chase after your opponent tries to get away from you after you beat them up. Usually you will open with your dash because it can pull them and put them into a free hit position for you. That's usually what happens. But you got your ultimate as well to follow through and get them when they escape, or to escape yourself if you put yourself in a bad situation. But in the laning phase, just farm up a lot, cause a lot of pressure on the enemy team, and just don't die so you don't fall back on farming. And then when it comes to the team fighting phase, what's important to remember is you are very fragile, but you hit really, really hard. But you are an assassin, so you want to try to get people in one-on-one situations. Now, when you're in a team fight, use your AoE attack to soften up the enemy gods, but if they get separated in any way, just go and dash and pull someone to a bad situation and beat them to death. The best time for Mercury is when you're catching people separated from the team, or when the team fight's over and then they're all kind of pretty beat up, and then you can come in and pick up the pieces. Mercury can run in really fast, punch people to death. He can even penta this way. I've done it. You run in, punch one person, they're dead, punch another, and punch another person. You just wipe a whole team on your own if you pick up the pieces at the right time, but it takes really good timing for that. Mercury is just a very damaging god, but your enemy team should be pretty smart about focusing you because you are pretty fragile. So you want to save your ultimate for escapes, but you can use your ultimate as well to disorient an enemy team if you can line up the shot. There's a lot of things to think about with Mercury, but the most important thing to think about is you are fragile. Always think about what can happen to you when you're going into the fight, and also saving up some form of escape. Always have your dash or your ult ready to get away at any time during a fight because you're going to need them to get out of there. But if you do well enough and beat everyone to death, as well as I know you can, you give your team a good chance at victory. Do's and don'ts with Mercury. First up are his do's. Now, the first we gotta think about is his passive. That is, remember that 25% of the speed he has also becomes power. So you can build a lot of speed stuff and still be very effective because you still get power with that. Another is special delivering into a 1v1 fight. You open with that dash, you're going to grab them and you're going to throw them somewhere, and you're going to get a free hit while they're midair. And then you can either finish them with the next punch most likely, or the third or fourth hit to kill them. And even if they have an escape, you can always maybe hit them with Major Look. If they have a leap though, you don't have really a way to get them, so you better make sure you kill them as soon as possible. A third do is Major Look can be used as a ranged crit attack. That's something to really keep in mind. You can use that to open a fight, crit them to soften up really hard, or catch them with the crit if they're running away, and you'll be building crit items which will help you out with that. And lastly is, try to take full advantage of your passive before ganks. Now, if you're going to run over with the intention of killing someone, you should probably not attack any jungle camps yet. Like, sometimes you'll do a jungle camp, then go do a gank, but for Mercury, because of how strong his passive is, you probably want to run over to the gank first, and then do the jungle camps after, just because of how hard you hit. You don't want to waste it on a jungle camp. You want to use it on somebody. Then there's the don'ts, and first don't is, don't ult to tower dive unless your ult will kill the enemy target, and you can safely get away. It is something that people do as they see someone really low, so they do the ult, and sometimes you'll kill someone, sometimes you won't, and then you're under the tower and you might die horribly. Of course, if you can, you want to ult through them, past their tower into a safe zone, which is awesome to do, not easy, but if you can pull that off, that's really great. Another don't is, don't special delivery into a team. You will die, of course, because you were doing that grab for a while when you're on them, so a team will just gang up on you and kill you while you grab somebody. Mercury in Arena. Now on the screen you're going to see a completely different build from Conquest because it's just a different beast in Arena, so Mercury's got to build accordingly to that. You can play him a very good hit and run kind of character with a lot of attack speed and movement speed, but I like to build him for power. So what I have here is a Warrior Tabi, Rage, Executioner, Bloodforge, Deathbringer, and Titan's Bane. This gives you a lot of pen, a lot of power, some good amount of lifesteal. You can hit kind of fast, especially when you're using your maximum velocity. And that's the way I do it. I usually put Sprint with this and some sort of defensive item or a stun with it to be very effective. But you can also get Witchblade for movement speed and slowing the enemy down, Hasten Fatalist so you can just stick to people really well, Aussie for lifesteal, Quinsize for more damage, Malice for different kind of crit, Hydra's Lament for cooldown and damage, Yotam's Wrath for cooldown pen, Magi's Blessing for some defensiveness, Frostbound Hammer to slow the enemy down when you're beating on them, and Ake Evil because the attack speed is just really good and gives you more power when you're hitting people, so that's not bad. As far as actives go, like I said, Sprint, and then for beads or ages for defensive if you want, or you can go extra aggressive with a Fist of the Gods. As far as abilities go, I think it's the same thing. You want to go Major Look first, then Maximum Velocity, and then your Special Delivery, getting your ultimate whenever possible. That's really going to work out. Now, when you're in combat, Mercury is really just a hit and run kind of guy. You're weakening the enemy using your Major Look, you're hitting them from range. If you can get someone isolated, you can hit them with Special Delivery, then Maximum Velocity, and just beat them to death, and use your ultimate to disorient people or finish off straggling, stuff like that. Now, with my style of things, every 60 seconds, I'm going Sprint 3 with Maximum Velocity and punching somebody to death. I'm going to hit someone really hard and fast, and they're gonna probably die to me pretty well. And then I can use Special Delivery or my ultimate to get the hell out of there. Also using Major Look to soften people up or finish people off, and that works out pretty well for me. And if it doesn't work out for you, there's other builds you can do, of course. No build is the end-all be-all, this just works for me. Mercury's weaknesses. Mercury only has like 3 real weaknesses, that is anti-crits, anti-basic attack and attack speed, and stun locking, but that's basically any god for that third one. Now the first one with anti-crits, that's Geb and Celestial Legion Helm. Geb has a passive that reduces crits, and then Celestial Legion Helm is just a magical item that just makes it worse for crits, and Mercury relies on crits a lot, so that's not so good for him. Then there's anti-basic attack and anti-attack speed, that would be Hydra-Nemean Lion and Witchblade. Witchblade keeps Mercury a little bit slower so he doesn't hit as fast and hard, and Enemy Line of course will do damage back to Mercury, which could get him killed since he's so fragile. That's something to worry about a little bit. Then there's just in general getting stun locked, which is something that a lot of guys have to worry about, but Mercury is something you gotta think about it with because he's just so fragile. That's where you're usually saving one of your escapes for well escaping. You're either gonna use your dash to get out of there or your ultimate to get out of there. You don't commit both to a fight unless you know you can kill everyone there, so you don't have to worry about running away in general. In conclusion, Mercury is a hyper carry. So the longer the fight goes, the harder Mercury hits. He can still be shut down with stuns and other counters, but he is capable of destroying most of the roster with his fists. Play fast and loose, and you should be able to punch people to death before they even realize you punched them in the first place. So that right there is the Mercury guide. Hope you learned a lot there. He's a very fragile god, but he can just hit and destroy people very well because he is a hyper carry. And there's a lot of things to think about with him, but hopefully I gave you enough information to give you a strong base that you can build off of, and in the future just do well on your own with your own ideas. So next time is going to be the guide for Uller, which is going to be pretty complicated. He's got so many things to think about with so many abilities. It's going to be a lot of fun trying to figure that one out. And there you go. That is the guide. Share it with anyone who you think could really use it. And, well, I learned a lot from this one. Hope you learned a lot as well. And that is the guide. I had fun. Hope you had fun watching. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.